With countless iconic nameplates from the Blue Oval, here are some of the fastest muscle cars that Ford has built over the decades. 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT, top speed 132 miles per hour. The late 60s and early 70s is a period that is considered to be the golden age of muscle cars. So many brands from across the United States are pushing the limits of the muscle car, with each of the brands constantly inspiring each other to create some of the most powerful cars in the world. Besides the Mustang, the Falcon nameplate is one that was also competitive in the muscle car scene, specifically with the 1973 XB GT model. Powered by a 5.7-liter V8, the '73 Ford Falcon XB GT was a force to be reckoned with. Developed by Ford Australia, this muscle car was super popular in the country. With the Falcon being discontinued in the U.S. in 1970 after a decline in sales, the States didn't get to appreciate the XB GT on release. The XB GT produces 300 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque, allowing for a top speed of 132 miles per hour. This number kept the Falcon XB GT more than competitive with the array of muscle cars being sold in the U.S. at the time. 1970 Ford Torino GT Cobra 429, top speed 136 miles per hour. As well as the Falcon, Ford also produced another muscle car besides the Mustang, the Torino. It followed the large, boxy design philosophy more than the Mustang. The 1970 Ford Torino GT most definitely had the power to match its size. The '70 Torino GT had a few different engine options, with the biggest being the 7.0-liter Super Cobra Jet 429 V8, making a whopping 375 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. The power of the '70 Ford Torino GT allowed the top trim to compete with the likes of the Dodge Charger and the Chevrolet Chevelle. In a straight line, the Torino's massive Super Cobra jet engine could reach a top speed of 136 miles per hour. It could also reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.6 seconds, more than filling its desired role to blast past its muscle car rivals. 1994 Ford Mustang GT SVT Cobra, top speed 137 miles per hour. Fast forward to the 1990s, and Ford was still manufacturing some of the best muscle cars on the market, even if this decade doesn't have the same esteem as those before it. Stricter emissions and regulations prevented Ford from building powerhouses like the Torino GT, but it still managed to produce what's one of the more underappreciated Mustangs, the '94 Mustang GT SVT Cobra. Powered by a 5-liter V8 pushing out 240 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque, the engine for the '94 Mustang GT SVT Cobra is expectedly smaller than the prior Mustangs that Ford had produced. Despite this, the notably sporty SVT Cobra variant still manages a top speed of 137 miles per hour, making it just as capable despite having a smaller engine. Today, you can pick up a '94 Ford Mustang GT Cobra for an average used price of just $8,000. '87 Ford Mustang GT 5.0, top speed 143 miles per hour. The 1987 Ford Mustang was one of the most important years for the nameplate, with the Mustang receiving a major restyling which carried on until 1993, the last year for the Fox body generation. The '87 Mustang GT, fitted with the same 5.0-liter V8 seen in the '94 Mustang SVT Cobra, had all the performance to match its sporty yet aggressive exterior styling, putting out 225 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque. These numbers may seem rather low in comparison to other Ford muscle cars on this list. However, due to the Fox body's lighter design, the '87 Mustang GT 5.0 could still produce competitive speeds within the muscle car scene. The top speed of the '87 Mustang GT 5.0 is an impressive 143 miles per hour, which paired with the 6.3 seconds it takes to reach 0 to 60 miles per hour, made this model a big improvement from the prior model year. 1967 Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500 Super Snake. Top speed, 170 miles per hour. Only 3 years after the first ever Mustang was released, came a model that is still considered to be one of the greatest Mustangs of all time. In 1967, Ford worked closely with the legendary Carroll Shelby to create the Mustang Shelby GT 500, a performance-focused version of the GT 350. As well as the base GT 500 models, a singular prototype model was developed named the Super Snake. Instead of the GT 500's Police Interceptor 428 cubic inch V8, the GT 500 Super Snake was fitted with a GT 40 spec 427 cubic inch V8 that was said to produce 520 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. With a mighty top speed of 170 miles per hour, the GT 500 Super Snake was at one point set to receive a limited production run of 50 examples, but was eventually deemed too expensive. 2016 Ford Mustang GT 350, top speed, 174 miles per hour. The first Ford muscle car from the 2010s to feature on this list is the 16 Mustang GT 350 based on the S550 platform. It brought back to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Mustang. The GT 350 became an instant hit, managing to stand out in an ultra-competitive decade. Powered by a 5.2-liter V8, the 16 GT 350 produces 526 horsepower and 429 pound-feet of torque, more than enough to create one of the most thrilling muscle cars of its time. As expected, this amount of power comes with some equally impressive speeds. The 17 GT 350 manages a top speed of 174 miles per hour, which is enough to rival the similarly priced European sports cars at the time, such as the 16 Porsche 718. This was the perfect performance car to kickstart the 6th-generation Mustang, which has only just come to an end. 2003 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra, top speed, 175 miles per hour. In the early 2000s, Ford once again raised the bar for the Mustang's performance, capturing the spirit of the early 60s cars, which spearheaded the nameplate into one of the most iconic cars of all time. Moving away from the less powerful engines in the 80s and 90s, the 2003 Mustang SVT Cobra was a car that set the stage for the models that feature higher up in this list. Despite being fitted with a smaller 4.6-liter DOHC V8, the power increased from the 80s and 90s, making 390 horsepower and equal amounts of torque per pound-foot. Even though these 4th-generation Mustangs weren't quite as light as the Fox bodies, the 03 Mustang SVT Cobra manages a top speed of 175 miles per hour when the 155 miles per hour government limiter is removed. 2020 Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500, top speed, 180 miles per hour. The most recent model to feature on this list is the 2020 Mustang Shelby GT 500, a car that was designed to replicate the impact the original 67 GT 500 had on the muscle car scene. Through blistering speeds and incredible handling, the 20 Mustang Shelby GT 500 received high praise from countless reviewers. Under the hood is a supercharged 5.2-liter V8, which makes this car the most powerful production Mustang of all time. This engine produces a mighty 760 horsepower and 625 pound-feet of torque, significantly more than the highest-level 2024 Mustang Dark Horse. Due to being developed to be a track monster, the 20 GT 500 doesn't quite have the top speed of the last two entries on this list, but can still reach a peak speed of 180 miles per hour. (2010) Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500, top speed, 190 miles per hour. Going back 10 years before the 2020 GT 500, Ford released the 2010 Mustang Shelby GT 500, falling right in the middle of the 5th, S197 generation of the nameplate. The Mustang received a facelift for the 2010 model year, with the GT 500 featuring all the modern interior tech, with some tremendous performance to honor Carroll Shelby's name. This model year features a 5.4-liter supercharged V8, pushing 540 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Due to not having quite as much aerodynamics as the 2020 model, the 10 Mustang Shelby GT 500 could keep climbing to a top speed of 190 miles per hour, becoming the perfect car to begin what would be a fantastic decade for the Mustang. 2013 Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500 Super Snake. Top speed, 202 miles per hour. As with the first ever Super Snake model released back in 1967, the 13 model made just as much of an impact and was slightly more accessible with a total of 500 units produced. Under the hood of this Mustang is a massive 5.8-liter supercharged V8 with a jaw-dropping power output rating of 662 horsepower and 631 pound-feet of torque. With this sort of power under the wheels, it comes to no surprise that the 13 Mustang Shelby GT 500 Super Snake can reach speeds of up to 202 miles per hour.